and welcome back to Government Week. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to chat with our communications team, and it'll be a slightly different interview today because I'm obviously part of the communications team, so I'm going to be asking questions that I'll have to answer myself as well. Now, in government, the communications team often, we're the people that you'll hear the City of Lake Worth Beach says are the notice from the City of Lake Worth Beach. It's normally one of us that's putting that together for you, but you'll very rarely actually hear our names or see us in person for these things. So today I've got the other members of my team with me. I've got Lauren Bennett, who's the Director of Leisure Services, the department that government or the communications falls under, and is also a major player in our social media and also keeping all the communication on track. And I have Keith Sullivan, who is our webmaster, who so far this year has designed 2 major websites and a whole bunch of smaller websites to get us through this, and is also the mastermind behind the Zoom campaigns so that you can watch commission meetings and the like. So as a team, we each play a different role. So let's start with Keith, your role. What is the role of webmaster?
So my primary job is to pretty much keep the website going, but it goes far beyond that. So in terms of being the webmaster, I control our servers. I do updates, whether they're security related or anything of that nature. I build and design our websites. We have a big major update coming that should be really pretty. And so a majority of my time while I'm waiting for updates, I spend it developing new things such as our new online service portal to make residents' lives easier, make staff lives easier, and really kind of make the city better and bring it into the 21st century.
Fantastic. And Lauren, how about your, well, obviously you're running the Leisure Services Department, but how about your communications role?
So yes, my day-to-day, I oversee the Leisure Services Department. It is one of the bigger departments within the city, and one of our divisions is the communications team. And in the communications component, I help run the social media accounts such as Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Nextdoor, and now we've brought on LinkedIn. We have multiple accounts for the city, for the beach complex, the city itself, and as well as the golf course. So I help Ben kind of monitor what's going on the pages, and I help come up with creative content as well as news information that's vital to get out to our residents 24/7.
And myself. So I'm the Public Information Officer, which means that my job is to take the multitudes of complex information running around the city and gather them up and make them accessible to you, the public, which involves social media, shows like this, even the utility bill inserts that you get with every utility bill that tells you what's going on in the city. So there's a lot of communication going on around the city, and our team collects it up and then puts it out to you. Now, like every other one of these interviews, all city staff have essentially 2 roles. We've got our day-to-day role, and then we've got our role during an emergency. So how do each of your roles change during an emergency? What's your emergency role? Lauren, I'll start with you. Sorry.
So during an emergency, I take off my leisure services hat and I put on my chief of logistics hat. So what that means is I oversee the logistics branch, which is a part of our emergency management response team. And logistics supplies all the supplies and needs that the other branches would need to operate during an emergency. Our biggest branch would be food, supplying food and water and ice to our teams to make sure that they're fed and hydrated and can keep going around the clock to get the city up and running for our residents.
Fantastic. And how about you, Keith?
So my job is a little bit more static in that I don't change too much. I act as a backup to you, Ben, and if I need to do any type of communications or anything that I'm called upon, but mainly a big part of my job is to pretty much stay available 24/7 to be able to update and push out changes given an emergency.
Okay, and for myself, the public information officer is actually, according to my job description, largely an emergency role. So that's when my job really comes into its own, is during an emergency. And during an emergency, I stop sleeping, I stop eating, and just solely am pushing out information. It really is a 24/7 role, and I rely heavily on Keith and Lauren to back me up during that time, so that I can continue to put the various bits of information out. Most notably during hurricanes. That's for all the staff in South Florida. That's our main emergency. However, 2020 has seemed like it has been one just long emergency, a never-ending emergency. And our team has very much been thrust into a key position of making this new normal work. So Keith, I'll start with you for this one. How has work changed for you since March 13th of 2020?
So for the most part, as the webmaster and kind of the Zoom master, it has not stopped. It's been pretty crazy. We kind of went into COVID with this, what do we do? Luckily, from some previous experience, I actually had quite a bit of familiarity with Zoom. So I was kind of one of the key players in getting that set up along with Ben and Lauren, kind of working on the logistics and how it would work. And so far, the biggest change is that I went from being involved with a lot of departments to pretty much being deeply involved with everything from city commission to our community sustainability team to all kinds of leisure services and recreation activities.
Okay, and Lauren, you had a bit of an interesting start to 2020. So do you want to tell us how you came back to the craziness?
Yes, so I was actually on maternity leave when COVID hit, and I jumped right back in to help the team out. So it was a very interesting start to the new year. But I would say my duties changed significantly and very quickly. So normally I would balance out amongst my different divisions my time, and immediately the communications component was front and center. And it was a lot of following the executive orders, constant communication with not only our assistant city manager and our city manager and our emergency management team, but we then had to stay in constant communication with all the other departments to keep them in loop, and then make sure that we're pushing out all the information that was changing what felt like by the minute to the public, to make sure that they were informed and that they were in the loop as to what was going on. And then I think trying to figure out how to work from home and keep track of everyone in your department, in our department, of what they're doing, and that they're following the orders and that they're staying up to date. That was really interesting at first, but I'm very thankful for that process, because our team really pulled through, not only internally to support each other on how we could function outside of the office, but we pulled together to basically take the whole city virtual. So I could not be more proud of our city team for how quick we responded and how well we did it.
Yeah, it was an incredible effort. What's weird that I was thinking about it the other day is that week started, and our biggest worry was just the mayor state city talk. And by the end of the week, we'd literally shut the entire operation down. Everyone had moved back home. It was wild. We were calling you out of maternity leave all changed very, very quickly, and there was no time to prepare. One of the things that we're lucky sort of in South Florida is that normally our emergencies come with about a week's notice. We know a hurricane's on its way. We've trained for it. We train constantly for hurricanes. We all know what our row is. We know what needs to be done, and we can get it done because we've got 5 days to a week to get our stuff together. However, with the pandemic, I think I watched one 5-minute video when I first started in the city, and it was largely because I clicked on the wrong link during my FEMA training, and that was all I knew about pandemics. And we basically just had to create it all from scratch, and that's been part of the benefit of having the multiple different skill sets of people like Keith, who were able to make Zoom work and advise us on how to make that system work. Because prior to March, I'd never heard of Zoom. So we really needed all of us to come together. And that was one of the great things working in the city during that time. Now the hard thing is keeping it up. It's been a long couple of months, and unfortunately it's not ending anytime soon. So I think that's one of the things that all of us staff are beginning to feel is it's long. Whereas a hurricane, it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and we know that we're going to be back to some sort of normal. At the moment, life isn't normal and isn't going to be in the near future. But one of the nice things is we have adapted to the new normal. For example, early on, we cancelled all the events. We just weren't going to do a public event. And now we're finding ways to make events happen. Our team's very involved in the Veterans Day to make sure that we can properly honor our veterans, but using technology rather than in person. Our Halloween event, Keith's created a system so people can book in, and we've come up with all these different things to allow people to still have a Halloween event. And so we're adapting. So now each of us are in relatively glamorous millennial jobs. To most people, we spend our days on the internet and playing on social media, but that's not always quite the case. So Keith, I'll start with you. What do you find hardest about our role, the reality of our role?
Of our role as communications?
Yes, yeah.
As communications, it's probably like the dissemination of information. We get a lot dumped on us from a lot of places really fast, and trying to make sense of that. I mean, when you've got executive orders left and right, you've got ones from the governor, you got local ones, you've got county ones, and we've got to figure out how to kind of give that to our audience in a way that they can understand. So that's a pretty big challenge in my mind right now, especially right now, I think. And in general, for communications wise, it's just, we hold so many hats, and, we're a relatively new team, but we really crush it when we get together. It's just, we've got a lot on our plates at all times.
And Lauren, how about yourself?
I would say for me, the hardest part of social media is turning it off. I always feel the need to stay connected to our community. So I'm constantly monitoring social media, even outside of the constant alerts that you and I both get, Ben. But I'm always worried about missing a beat, and I don't want to. So sometimes that's hard when you get home and you need to switch to your work or your personal life. It's hard to turn off that work switch because things change so rapidly in our field. And I know we just want to make sure that we're staying up to date and keeping our residents in the loop at all times.
Yeah, I think that the constant changes is wild. It feels like there's a new change to Facebook, and although it's annoying on your personal profile, trust me, on a city profile, where not only does it all have to, the information has to get out there, but also it has to be recorded Florida's a sunshine state and everything is a public record. And, we have to stay on top of that, making sure it all gets recorded. And sure, Keith's had the same issue with the website. Every form that gets sent in has to be recorded, backed up, and meet very, very stringent requirements. And the other thing that's kind of difficult is that we're essentially the first in this role. Even as a public information officer, that role has changed unbelievably in just the last 3 years, never mind the last 10. So we're sort of the new generation in this new world, and we are used to it because we grew up in it in a way that many of our colleagues just aren't. So one of the things we're having to learn to do is to translate the new online world to very, very smart people who just, it's not a world that they know. And that gets hard sometimes. So.
And just to add too, I think, sorry, Ben, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to mention this before I forgot. You and I are often the front line for those who can't get in touch with someone in the city during off hours. So if something is happening in someone's yard, or if there's some type of something that needs to be dealt with like right away, oftentimes they reach out to us on social media. And I think it's important to both you and I to make sure that we stay on top of it all the time, because we want our residents to know that we hear them and we see them and that we want to be there for them all the time. So I think that's another hard part too, about you want to make sure that you're on it all the time, because you don't want to miss a resident trying to reach out to us.
Yeah. And of course, that also means that when people are upset, we tend to take the full brunt. There's been some periods where it just felt like every 5 minutes we were getting another very angry message. And, it's hard to remember that they're not necessarily upset with you personally. They're upset with the situation, and you've got to do your best to try and help them. Like many different positions, Keith's probably the one with the easiest, sort of most set in stone career path. But it's always interesting to hear what was people's career path to get to their position. And how did they get to the role that they're in today? So Keith, I'll start with you, because I think for once it's a fairly understandable answer.
Technically, kinda. I actually worked in telecommunications for 7 years prior to getting into web development and so on. Beyond that, it really was, it was telecommunications and school at the same time. Kind of did my thing, eventually moved into where I was designing websites. I did some cool websites for like Bayer, like Flintstones vitamins. My name was on that for a little bit, so it's pretty cool. From there, I got into just being a webmaster for a college, and then on to being a webmaster and IT manager for a nonprofit organization before I came here. And across all of those, I've worked closely with a marketing team almost constantly. I actually chaired the marketing team at the community college I worked for. So really, it eventually all just kind of fell into place, and now I build websites.
And Lauren, how about yourself?
So I have always grown up in the hospitality field, and I knew that I wanted to do something in that field of work. So I actually got my degree in Parks and Recreation with a specialization in event management. And I fell into this job because I was actually engaged and looking for somewhere to have my wedding. So I came across the casino ballroom amongst my wedding search. I also found a job opening, and I was lucky enough to find a home in this city.
And for myself, obviously, I'm not really from around here. I did do high school in South Florida, actually in Palm Beach County, and then went back to the UK where I studied history. And had full aspirations of going into the British Army and becoming an officer at Sandhurst, and unfortunately had a bit of an accident that ended that career. Then I ended up working on cruise ships, first as an IT officer, and then later on working in the entertainment side of things, actually as the ship's bagpiper of all things. And at the same time, I was running a large nonprofit back in the UK. And a job opening opened up in Lake Worth for a public information officer. I was very good at writing and big, long, expansive sentences and taking complex information and making it somewhat simple. And that's how I got into the role. And then once I got here, it's all just kind of taken off. So, yeah, did not go to school to study to be a PIO, that's for sure. But it's all worked out, and this is definitely the best place that I've found to work. Now, for those interested in a role in your area of communications, what advice would you give them? Lauren, I'll start with you this time.
I would say that you have to be ready to respond at any time from anywhere. You really don't get to turn it off unless you have someone else, like a partner, like Ben for me, where I can say, hey, I'm going on vacation. Can you cover for me? Before Ben came along, I've responded in other countries just because that's what the Call of Duty requires. And so your family members also have to get used to the fact that you were tied to your work phone. And they have to get used to those social media alerts, which was not fun at first. But, you know, it takes adjustment and everybody kind of gets used to it. But you have to be willing to be responsive at any time.
Keith, how about you?
I think you really just have to stay open to, in whatever role you are in. I mean, if you end up in communications, a lot of times you've come from a different area. I mean, you know, people study communications and it teaches you a little bit, but when you're in an organization, everything changes. I mean, so you just have to take it all in, and I just feel like the pieces eventually fit together, and you just fit into a role that works for you. So if you really like it, you just got to find a company, stick with it, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, communications is constantly changing. So yeah, you can go and you can study it, and you know, you can learn the basics of it. But one of the things I can tell you is I've had to study things since starting for Lake Worth, but I never thought I would need to know. You know, most recently I had to study to pass my drone pilot certification because it's going to be a part of our future of communications. You're constantly studying new technology, you're learning new platforms. You know, like Lauren said, we've got multiple social media sites, and each one is just a little bit different. Copy and pasting doesn't work between them all. So you have to learn what their tweets are and what sort of things make your message stand out on those platforms. And the other thing is that you're going to have to be able to understand other people's jobs and not necessarily be able to take the time to get the information from them. A good example of that is City of Lake Worth Beach has an electric utility, and Lauren and I have had to learn in depth how an electric system works, and it's incredible. It's mind-boggling. Sometimes I genuinely think that they're using made-up magic terms in order to confuse me, but you do have to be able to sort of be a very quick study, often with people that don't have the time to give you a lot of background information. And then it's just a commitment to getting the information right. You know, one of the most important things as a member of a communications team is that you get the right information at the right time to the right person. And you know, it's been a couple of years now I've been in this role, and even I struggle sometimes to get the right information first, to determine who the right person is, and also to make it understandable, especially when it's information that people don't necessarily want to hear. An example of that would be wear a mask. does not go down super well, and it's hard to always guarantee how to get that information to reach people in a way that will hopefully encourage them to follow the advice. So if you're looking into a role in communications, best thing to do is, start practicing, look at whatever information is coming out. 2020 is a great year for it, and start seeing how you would put it together, how you would present it to the public. Now, Lakewood Beach is very unique. I've been told there's no city like it, especially for those working there. And we all very much enjoy our jobs. Although it drives us mad sometimes, we all do love working here. So what is your favorite part of working for the city of Lakewood Beach? Keith, I'll let you start. You're the newest.
For me, it's been the openness of our management and even staff to change. Change is inevitable, especially with, a position like mine with the website that's had to change so much. We've done more and more, and we continue to do more, and we're not stopping. Like, things are changing. We're going digital, and I've always had, leadership behind me, and it's a nice place to work because it's a community in itself, our staff. So it's just fantastic to have that.
Okay, Lauren, how about yourself?
So 3 things actually came to mind when you asked this question. And the first is the residents. I absolutely love the residents of this city. They are so welcoming and so warm. They make you feel like you are family. And I actually look forward to our annual events every year because I get to spend time with our residents. They hug you. They wish you happy holidays. It's unlike any other city I've ever worked for. My second is my team. I absolutely love who we work with. We have a great team. We all mesh really well, and we all work together for the betterment of the city. And it's just a really supportive group environment where everybody's willing to pitch in and put on a different hat to help whoever, whenever, however. And you don't really get that often. So I absolutely adore who we work with. They make the amount of time we spend away from our family worth it. And then I would say our leadership, not only our assistant city manager and our city manager, but our commissioners, our council, they're very supportive of us as staff, and they allow us to be creative. That's not always accepted in government. Sometimes they just want you to stick to status quo. And here, the city allows you to take creative risks and to think outside the box. And for those of us who are creatives, that allows us to thrive. We actually are able to go above and beyond because we have that creative freedom and support to kind of think a little funky and see if it'll work. And I can't even express how much that means to a creative like us, like myself, because you feel free and you just feel supported and like you're in a great environment to work.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. The team at Lakewood Beach is fantastic, and even during the bad times, the various staff members, we all come together, and you want to be around them. It does feel like an extended family here, and the ability to create and try new things. I've never worked somewhere that's as open to that as Lakewood Beach. One of the things I said earlier, learning to fly the drones was an offhand comment after Irma about something that we needed. And, I've got to learn this whole new skill that I'm really excited by and interested in. And the other thing is that, my job is PIO, but I still get to, discuss things with the events team and help them come up with ideas. So we're not just stuck in a silo where you can't talk outside of your zone. An email yesterday was about a trebuchet competition, which oh my gosh, I'm so excited by the idea of. And so that makes it really easy to get on with the hard times, because you know that the following week it might be another set of fun things that we're working on. But yeah, definitely the team at Lakewood Beach makes it what it is, without a doubt. So now we've talked a lot about work, what we enjoy about Lakewood Beach, and the bits of our jobs that we don't enjoy. But all of us have a life outside of work. You two are some of the most interesting people to talk to about life outside of the city, and you're both very big travelers, even more so than myself, who grew up on cruise ships, and you guys still managed to out-travel me. So out of work, what do you most enjoy? And Lauren, I'll start with you.
I love to travel, mainly international travel. I love cultural immersion. I like to see how other people live, and I like to take creative components and see, how I'm always looking how I can relate it back to work. And I love food. I love trying different types of food, and just really immersing myself in different cultures. I also love to fish. Even though I get seasick, I still do it. And I love to read.
And Keith, how about yourself?
So I'm similar. I do love to travel. I travel quite a bit because not even growing up, pretty much as soon as I turned 21, I started just moving all around. So lived in 6 or 7 states now. So I often have friends in every single one of them. So I try to travel to them as often as I can. So mine's more domestic. However, I'm planning to get into the international travel hopefully soon. Outside of that, I love walking and running, jogging, and then I'm a nerd at heart. So video games and sitting behind my computer on Reddit.
Awesome. And for myself, my background's history, so anything history related. Outside of work, I'm a professional sword instructor, and love teaching, and also creative activities. So this is a perfect job because I get to be creative in work, but outside of work, I love doing all sorts of crafting and creative things. And whenever I can, I love to be back on the ocean. It's where I grew up, and it's probably my favorite place to spend a lot of time, but not on small boats. I'm not so into the small fishing boats. I like large, very luxurious ships. So final question, guys. What are your hopes for the next year in Lakewood Beach? Lauren, you can start this time.
I just want to get back to normal. I just want to have events, and I want to hug our neighbors and our friends and just put this behind us. So I guess I hope for a healthy, happy year.
Lots of vaccines. Keith, how about yourself?
I would concur, but I'm the nerd and the website person, and I just hope we continue to push forward as we've done. We've done so much, and we're just getting started. So I'm excited to see what happens in this coming year.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I know we were thrust into the different changes, but so many of them have been very positive, and I hope that we can keep growing on them and keep leading the way. I mean, one of the things that gets forgotten about is Lakewood Beach was actually one of the very first cities in the state to hold a virtual meeting and pull it off successfully. We were held up as the example for others that wanted to do so. So I want us to continue pushing forward like that and leading the way into this new normal. But certainly would be nice to have the vaccine and put the pandemic behind us so that we can enjoy the new normal a little bit more. So, well, thank you both. It's always a pleasure anytime we get to speak, and I truly enjoy working with you both. I can't imagine there's many other people in the city that spend so much time at work, but I really love how our team comes together and everything that we're able to accomplish for the residents of the city. And at the end of the day, we're all public servants, and you two are my favorite people in the city. I love spending time with you, and I'm very grateful for you taking the time today to sit and talk a little bit about our experiences, because at the end of the day, we often forget to share our experiences. When I was making the opener for this video, I actually realized that I've got footage and pictures of every department in the city except for one division. I have next to no media about us and the work that we do. So it's nice that we're getting this chance to tell our story a little bit. But thank you very much, guys, and enjoy your weekend. All right,
Thanks,
bye for now.
Thank you.